Hi there guys, hope you're all well. Welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be entitled The Mandela Effect 6 months on. So it's now been there or thereabouts 6 months since I first found out about the Mandela Effect. Still hate calling it the Mandela Effect, but it's a kind of catch term that everyone will be able to understand what it is that I'm talking about. But I personally think it's more of a quantum effect rather than a Mandela effect, so to speak. So with regard to this video, I'm going to just be talking about things that have happened to me personally in the last 6 months, my views on the Mandela effect now, and anything else that has happened along the way of this journey that maybe someone else will find interesting. So first of all, I just want to say synchronicities. Now this is something that I had instinctively, I would say, thought about with regard to my reality prior to the Mandela effect. However, it is something that has become more apparent to me since the Mandela effect has absolutely changed my life. My views, somewhat, I would say it's almost enhanced my belief system with certain things. But synchronicity, so I had a story, or actually I've had two stories. There's a recent one that I haven't spoken about, and one that I previously had spoken about in another video. But for anyone that is just stumbling upon this by searching Mandela effect or whatnot, I was in New York a couple of months ago, and I saw this little kid walk past, and he had a backpack on with the Monopoly man without the monocle. And I thought this was around the time when I just realised about the Monopoly man not having the monocle, whereas I've always known him to have a monocle. And I thought it was just so bizarre because I couldn't remember ever seeing someone walk past with the Monopoly man on their clothing. I mean, it was quite a cool backpack with like a graffiti spray painted Monopoly man. But in my head, I know this probably sounds ridiculous, but I just said to myself, or to the higher power, my energy, whatever you want to call it, I just said, if I was meant to see that, can you let me know? Because it all, as I say, the taxi was on the way to the airport. I was on my way home, pulled up at the lights or in traffic, I can't quite remember. Kid walked across, I just happened to see it. Less than 2 minutes later, again was caught up in traffic. I looked left out of the window and there was a school that was called the Mandela High School or Mandela High or something to that effect. And I thought maybe these are common names of schools in America, I'm not sure. But in my life, I had never seen a school named after Nelson Mandela. I thought of any person, it could have even been Malcolm X, it could have been, I don't know, some other figurehead, but it was Nelson Mandela, and I just thought that was just too ironic. Now recently, only about a week ago, I was just out going to get some food, and I walked past like a gym area, and there was this kid wearing a Luke, I Am Your Father t-shirt. So again, the same thing. I said, oh, okay, so it clearly said Luke, I Am Your Father. Again, how I know that phrase to be not no, I am your father. So again, I said, oh, was I meant to see this? And I almost tried to dismiss it because I'm at this point, so the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to not focus on the Mandela effect as much because, well, I'll get to that later on in the video. But yeah, so he had this Luke, I Am Your Father t-shirt on. Later on in the day, I was in a different area, and I saw this kid holding a monkey toy, which, if it wasn't Curious George, again, I didn't really know too much about Curious George, so I wouldn't say that this one particularly affected me, but again, I still researched it. So this monkey toy looked a heck of a lot like Curious George. I know people out there will say, well, it could just be any old monkey toy. It possibly could be. But this toy looked an awful lot like Curious George. It had a tail, and I was just fixated on this monkey, and I was thinking, again, it could be that your brain starts seeking answers. Maybe I was looking for something subconsciously, but this monkey toy looked a lot like Curious George, had a tail. On with that one. Okay, so with regard to other things that I've seen in real life, i.e. not just on Google, not just other people's examples, Pikachu without the black tip on his tail or the brown tip. Again, I can't personally remember what colour tip he had on his tail, whether it was black or brown. I want to say black. So there's a shop called Primark here, which is like a cheap shop. I went in there. They've got loads of Pokemon goods. And yeah, no black tip anywhere for Pikachu. I've walked past other off licenses, news agents, and just seen like a Pikachu sticker on the window, no black tip. And you could see these stickers had been there for quite some time. They'd had like scratches in them and they look quite worn and aged. Again, you look at your Pokemon cards from when you're a kid and there's no black tip on the tail. So that's one that is particularly interesting for me personally, because I was a huge Pokemon fan. So another thing that happened along my journey of the Mandela effect, I had, again, I always try and think of a rational, logical answer behind it. So I had surgery previously for sinus issues. I had to have my nasal cavities enlarged. But I did, at one stage, all of a sudden start having this kind of orange stuff leaking out of my nose. Again, it could be sinus fluid. It could be completely related to the sinus operation, even though this was like years after. It could be related to that. There was also a stage when I had excruciating pain behind my eye sockets, and this has happened actually twice in the last 6 months, where it almost feels like my eyeballs are being scooped out from behind the sockets, and these last for about 4 or 5 days. Again, it could be completely irrelevant with regard to the Mandela effect, but the only reason why I'm bringing this one up is because I've put hundreds of hours into researching this Mandela effect, and when I say researching, I mean checking news articles, other people's videos on YouTube in particular, Reddit posts, probably put in at least 300 hours worth of research on this since I first found out what this was about. This is like the biggest thing. I believe in many conspiracies. I've looked into many conspiracies, but this is more than a conspiracy. This literally changes everything, the reality, I guess. So where was I? I was going off on a tangent there. But so the pain behind the eye. So I'd actually seen in other people's videos that they had had similar things happen to them. Now, this could just be purely coincidental. I mean, maybe this only affects people that have had an operation of sorts. Who knows? But yeah, I just thought I would mention that there. So another thing, sorry if I keep looking down, guys. I've actually had to make bullet points on a sheet here, because otherwise I will just talk and probably go off topic a lot. So I do personally believe, now this again, when I was researching this, I was looking at other people's points of views on this. Many people, YouTubers that had been covering this for a long time, longer than myself probably, believe that this is a nicer world that we live in, because they can change the reality and what have you. Whereas for me personally, I tried to believe that notion for quite some time. I tried to almost trick myself into thinking, oh yeah, things are nicer now, and etc, etc. But the reality is, I actually think that for some reason, this does seem like a darker world, in the sense of not as in light levels, but just things that are happening in general. And I feel like things are happening thick and fast. I mean, I'm losing track of what's going on, hence why I haven't really put a video out in, I don't know how long it's been. I did a Simpsons video, but other than that, it almost seems like every day I wake up, there's something new going on, like a massive event, not just someone's been killed or raped or murdered or kidnapped, or like, you know, the regular things that you read about to buy your newspaper, I guess. But I mean, you've got this Pizzagate thing, which again, I have my views on that. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Whether it's true, whether it's misinformation, whether there's an alternate, like an agenda at the end of it, who knows? But I feel like when you look at the beast system, I can see that coming to fruition. RFID chips, that's coming thick and fast. And for anyone that still doesn't believe in the RFID beast system, I don't think anyone's a lost cause, because I think people can change their views, but to me it seems so obvious now. That's one kind of conspiracy, I guess, that I've been looking into for quite some time, and I've been seeing things happen over and over the period of time I've been researching it, and I feel like we're very, very, very close to that being implemented as a general thing, like a general population requirement in a sense. But I just feel in general that people seem different now. Now again, this might be me that's changed, I don't know, because I feel like I've changed significantly in the past. I would probably even say the past year, rather than the 6 months that I've even known about the Mandela effect. And something that's actually happening to me lately, which is so bizarre. My favourite food, if I had to say what it was, would have been like barbecue food. Not barbecue sauce, but just having stuff on a barbecue, like barbecue chicken, barbecue ribs, barbecue this, barbecue that. I now don't hardly ever eat pork, probably in the last year. And the thought of eating meat now actually repulses me somewhat. I still do eat meat occasionally, but there's like, I'm having meat-free days more and more often, where I'll be eating hummus or falafel or chickpeas or something to replace meat, and I don't feel like I crave meat. And the reason why I'm adding this as well, because this is just, I feel like my whole view on it has changed, and no one has persuaded me. It's not that I'm in a circle of vegetarian people that are always saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. It's not like that at all. It's just, I can't explain why this has happened. I even went to a meat grill 2 weeks ago for a friend's birthday, and it was a Brazilian barbecue place, just meat on the skewer. They just keep bringing it around, and just the look of it, the fact that people were kind of licking their lips to eat this, it repulsed me, and I still ate it, but it almost felt like my old programming of myself was allowing me to override my new programming in a sense. I know that sounds probably ridiculous to some people, excuse me, but yeah, I still ate it, but I felt so sick. The fact that it's almost like my brain now computes that piece of meat was an animal, whereas prior to that, I think if you've been eating meat at a young age, you almost become desensitized as to what it is. You just see it as a food source on your plate. You don't see it as, oh wow, that was that cow that I was stroking and feeding. I mean, there's like a broken link somewhere that you just don't put the two together. Again, I won't talk about vegetarianism too much, because that's I'm not pushing that upon anyone. I'm just saying for me personally, this is happening. So I've realised also more and more, in particular in the last 6 months, that we do absolutely live in a slave system on this planet, on Earth. I do believe that we are free in the sense that we can walk around and go from A to B to a certain degree, but try doing that without money and see how you see how long you last when you want to get travel from somewhere, when you need entrance to somewhere. I posted a video on my YouTube a few months ago. I believe it was by a guy named Stefan Molyneux. He seems pretty big in the kind of conspiracy field, I guess, and yeah, he articulated it perfectly. But the general gist of it is that when you have cattle, for example, in a farm, when they're being whipped and prodded and punished, it affects their produce. So they won't be as productive. Their milk maybe won't taste as good, or the chickens maybe won't lay as many eggs if they're under stress. So we are in effect, I believe, free-range slaves, in the sense that we think we're making our own decisions. We even the way I'm dressing, this top has a Nike tick on it. I mean, I've had this top for, I don't know, 5 years or something, but the fact that I've bought that to give myself an image to represent myself with. Again, that's a slave. I'm branded. It's exactly the same as a cow being prodded with a hot poker. That is exactly the same. I've basically adorned myself with a Nike tick, so I'm a slave to this corporation. They have branded me. There's no trick why it's called a brand name. Again, I'm just touching on these subjects. I'm not going to elaborate too much on them. But if you are interested in anything I'm saying, just let me know. I mean, there's always things out there that you can research yourself, make your own minds up. These are all just my points of view. Just thought I'd put that out there. So, with regard to the Mandela effect as well, I feel like for me personally, it has confounded my spiritual beliefs even more. I feel like I was always asking questions in life. What's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I? What are we? I do believe, again, that every human being is connected on some sort of grand scale, whether it's like we are all a mini energy, I guess, that is connected to a larger energy source. And I've always felt this anyway, but without being able to articulate it. When I go into a room, I can often sense a vibe, like good or bad, happy, sad, and it actually affects me. So we've got an underground tube system, like a metro is what you'd have in America. When I was working in the city, it would be completely packed out in the morning, and I would feel drained just from being around all the energy on the way to work. And now that I couldn't really tell people this, because they'd be like, well, why are you coming in tired? And I'd just say, I feel drained because I'm being around too many people. And I know that sounds stupid. I'm not like a little hermit that doesn't like to see anyone. But yeah, I for me personally, I believe that we are all energy on this earth, having an experience for some sort of grand scheme. The grand scheme is what I'm not sure about. I believe that what you see here in front of you is a vehicle, a rental vehicle, in that sense, that my spirit, my life force, essence, energy, whatever you want to call it, is inhabiting this body, and you're able to communicate with it aesthetically, knowing what you're looking at. But ultimately, I don't believe that when we die, we just die, and that we are a connected energy. And I do believe that also the media and whatnot knows this to a certain degree. Maybe not every person within the media, but I mean the upper levels. And this is why you have many things like... I don't want to go too much into this, but just separation in general, whether it's racism, prejudice, xenophobiaism, if that's a word. There's always a degree of separation. It's almost like if we did all come together, something amazing would happen, but there's always something separating people, whether it's religious beliefs, whether it's cultural beliefs, colour, creed. I mean, yeah, you only have to open probably a newspaper now and there'll be some article in there along the way. And also, I do believe, even more so this is something that I've always instinctively believed, that our history isn't as it has been taught to us. Now, over the space of this 6 months with the Mandela effect, has also made me look into other areas. When you're doing research, you'll often be researching one thing, and all of a sudden you're on 5 topics later that all somehow have a link towards it. But I've also, again, feel like I'm just starting out on the journey for this, but I do feel that history is definitely not what we've been taught, and I mean massively different. And I feel, again, instinctively, whether it's from the research, gut instinct, intuition, whatever you want to call it, that ancient Egypt has a massive part to do with whatever we're not being told about. And possibly Antarctica. I know they're two kind of literally polar ends of the scale, but those two places, I feel like there's a lot that we haven't been taught about, and I mean something that could potentially blow our minds. And I feel that there is going to be some sort of disclosure. Again, this could be because I've been doing research. It could be something else, but instinctively, I feel like within the next year, something so big is going to happen that it's going to change our views on life as we know it. I feel like the Mandela effect is just a start, in the sense that, for me, I now realise that not everything is set in stone. Things can change, evidently so. And I know you're still going to have debunkers out there saying, oh yeah, but all these people have got a poor memory and X, Y, and Z, and oh, it's because this looks like that and that looks like this. You know what, fair dues. I've watched many debunking videos. I get it. Not everyone gets this. I completely understand. My family members don't particularly understand this or see it for what I see it for. But yeah, this is just effectively an update video. So this is for me to maybe look back on in a year. Hopefully, if anyone found it interesting, this is for you to reference or to maybe give you a slightly different way of thinking. As I say, when I go back to saying I think everyone is connected, this is what I mean. So maybe I'll say something that will trigger someone else to look into something, that, or maybe say something to someone else, and then they might be able to change the world. You just never know. That's how I believe life works. Yeah, we're all connected. But that's all from me, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for subscribing as well. The channel's still growing, even though I haven't really put much content out there lately. But that's all from me. Thanks a lot for your time, guys. Cheers. Bye.